Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, H02 in Love, here to bring you another episode of Sports Overview with Topics. Um, just be aware, this episode is being recorded a day in advance, so if there's something I missed, my apologies. I didn't get to cover it, write it down, but have a lot to go over today. So the qualifying round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, of course, is at an end. And for the past week, the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs is is going along. So I'll go over that. Plus, the NBA playoffs seedings are official. The regular season bubble is at an end, as you can tell by my thumbnail, that the SUNS, congrats to them for going 8-0. However, because Giannis, well, first of all, Giannis and the Bucks were in a game against the Washington Wizards, which, I mean, the Wizards were the only team from the East that were on the outside looking in that had an opportunity for the playoffs. But it seemed like a throwaway game. So Giannis still, he did a stupid thing. He hit a headbutt on the guard of the Wizards, got ejected, and then didn't play against the Grizzlies, which ultimately they lost by 12 to the Grizzlies, which meant for the Suns, even though they went 8-0, they needed the Trailblazers to lose to the Brooklyn Nets in order to be able to do the play-in series in order to make the playoffs. And that did not happen. It almost did, but it didn't. The Trailblazers won 134 to 133, which sunk the playoff hopes of the Suns. So, this season, especially the bubble, is a win in total for the Suns, considering some of the teams they beat. I mean, they beat the Clippers, that great game winner from Devin Booker. They beat the Miami Heat. They beat the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, no shame in the teams they beat along the way. It just didn't materialize all for them. Would have been, but nonetheless, they have been a great story this bubble, and that's what you love to see in the NBA's stories. So the Trailblazers, like I said, they faced the Grizzlies yesterday in the play-in series. The Trailblazers, if they won, they would be the 8th seed. If the Grizzlies won, then today it would be another game, and then whoever wins would be the 8th seed in the West. And the Trailblazers, they won yesterday. So I'll go over my playoff predictions in a bit, but first I want to go over the scores of the NHL playoffs so far, because there's a bunch. so far that I wanted to get into. So, the Vegas Golden Knights, they are currently leading the Chicago Blackhawks 3-0. So, Chicago Blackhawks, they better think of something because they're in danger of getting swept. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they currently lead the Blue Jackets 2-1. The Colorado Avalanche, they lost last night. However, the Arizona Coyotes, they got their first playoff win in 8 years last night against Colorado Avalanche. However, they still trail 2-1 in the series. The Boston Bruins, they currently lead the Carolina Hurricanes 2-1 in the series. The Calgary Flames currently lead the Dallas Stars 2-0. And the New York Islanders currently lead the Washington Capitals 2-0. The Vancouver Canucks currently lead the St. Louis Blues 2-0. And the Montreal Canadiens and the Philadelphia Flyers are both tied at 1 apiece. So that's all the coverage of the NHL playoff series going down so far. So is that, like I said, the Phoenix Suns, they went 8-0 in the bubble. So last night was UFC 52. And it was the end of a pretty solid trilogy that's overall will go down as one of the best trilogies in the UFC. UFC 252 was headlined by Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier 3, Chapter 3 in the trilogy. But before that, we had a couple of solid fights. We had Junior Dos Santos, JDS, had a pretty solid mustache, I must say. But in his fight against Jerry Ezo Rosenstrike, the first round was, the first round was pretty much a stalemate. The second round, Rosenstrike, both were kind of cautious, you could say, because JDS going into the fight had lost 2 straight. Rosenstrike, he beat Werdum. I keep getting them confused. Werdum and Overeem. Overeem, he won that fight last second against him when he was clearly losing the whole fight against Overeem. And then he got knocked out by Francis Ngannou in his last fight in 18 seconds. It was just like Donkey Kong crap. But you could argue that both these guys were coming in on 2 fight losing streaks, and they both really needed momentum. And who came out? Rosenstrike in the second round. Well, originally when I saw the 1-2 by Rosenstrike up against the fence, it looked to me that JDS, from how he fell, it looked like he stumbled just up against the cage. He fell. Rosenstrike, he landed a few shots. JDS tried to get back up, but he fell back down due to strikes. Rosenstrike, he continued on and got the finish. Rosenstrike moves on. JDS, he falls to 0-3. I mean, JDS, prior to his fight against Francis, he was on a 3-fight losing streak, or winning streak, excuse me. And then he just got finished by Francis when he went all or nothing and got nothing. With a big haymaker, and ever since then, he's just been not the same. JDS, he is he's a veteran. He go down as one of the best heavyweights in UFC history. Where does he go from here? I'm not sure. When you look at the landscape of the top 4 of the guys at the top of the heap at the heavyweight division right now, it's kind of difficult to see if JDS will factor into the top of the heap and get another title shot right now. Because, he got another title shot against Stipe, but that go to his liking. You go back to his trilogy against Cain Velasquez, and those fights just took years, I would say, off his career. And, what more can I say? I'm not sure where it goes from here. Now, Rosenstrike, on the other hand, it's very interesting because Derek Lewis just beat Alexei Oleinik. Curse Blades just beat Alexander Volkov. Of course you got Francis, but he just got knocked out by Francis. So, one of those two guys you can absolutely see Rosenstrike facing. Should be an interesting fight. But yeah, we'll see. Then on to the co-main event. We had Sugar Sean O'Malley go up against Marlon Chito Vera, who in his last fight was basically robbed of a decision. In this case, it was vastly different. Now, Sugar Sean O'Malley, of course there's people who love him, there's people who hate him. He's got massive potential. Yeah, he has a lot of hype. Do people see? Here's the thing: there's always going to be lovers, and there's always going to be haters. So, first I got into the fight. So there was an exchange at the start of the round where Sean O'Malley, he went for I think a takedown or a leg sweep or something. And it looked like he tweaked his right leg when it happened. Now, he played off it well, but you could clearly see he was in discomfort. And then, while O'Malley was on the attack, all of a sudden, Mali stumbled at the end of the round, and you could clearly see he was in pain, grasping for his leg. And Vera, he landed some ground and pound, and the fight was stopped. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Marlon Vera. Solid win, deservedly so. 6-0. He's definitely right there at the top of the heap when it comes to the bantamweight division. With Sean O'Malley, I mean, yes, he has a lot of hype. Yes, he has a lot of talent, but you know, and from some of the tweets I saw after the fight, there will be people complaining. People think I went out. I mean, you don't want to wish ill will on any fighter. You don't want to see a young, talented, up and rising guy get injured. I mean, if he loses, so be it, but you don't want to see a guy like that get injured, and you hope for the best. I mean, when he got injured against Andrei Sukhomtov years ago, he came back. You just hope that this doesn't derail him, because we don't know the significance of the injury, but still is what it is. Just hope Sean O'Malley gets back healthy ASAP, and because he is young, he is exciting. People want to see him, and he adds more flair to that 135-pound division. So there's that. Now on to the main event, the trilogy between Stipe and DC. This was widely touted as DC's last fight. Now, when you go on top, the fairy tale ending, win the title, and then retire, well, this fight, I mean, you look at the first fight, it was pretty close on the feet, and then they got into the clinch, and then DC threw a right hand over the top, dropped Stipe, and finished him. Now, the second fight, DC was having early success, but then Stipe made adjustments, targeted the body, and then in the fourth round, he landed more combinations and finished him. This fight, I don't see, it's really hard for a rematch to top the first one. I mean, you rarely see it. I mean, you see it sometimes, but it's hard to. Sometimes difficult for a rematch to topple the first fight. This fight, the trilogy, I mean, you could make the argument that it was better than the first fight, but nonetheless, this was a close fight. Stipe and DC both landed shots. They both tried to mix in wrestling. Obviously, they had a short cage, so you knew wrestling was going to be a part of it. But in the end, Stipe retained, unanimous decision. Unfortunately for Cormier, not only does he lose, he torn his cornea in the fight due to an eye poke that was missed by Mark Goddard. But, I mean, when you look at DC's career, he said it was going to be his last fight. He said it was after the fight. I mean, DC, I mean, I'm one of the ones who admit it. I wasn't exactly a big fan of DC as opposed when he was, simply because of the way he was carrying himself and simply because of the way he handles himself, especially in the mic. Still, his John Jones fights and build up will always be remembered. Whether you want to talk about what happened with John Jones, you have to remember that the build-up wouldn't be there if DC wasn't a part of it. I mean, DC, you have to respect him because the only guys to have defeated him in the octagon are Stipe and John Jones. Besides those two, I mean, he beat Volkan Ozdemir when he was white hot. He beat Anthony Johnson not once but twice when he was scary. He beat Gustafsson. I mean, it's just, you have to respect him. And DC, hats off to a solid MMA career. Hope his eye heals up as quick as possible. And as for Stipe, I mean, this just adds on to some resume. I don't see, Stipe has pretty much done all you can when it comes to being a UFC heavyweight. I mean, he beat Roy Nelson. He beat Mark Hunt. He beat Andrei Arlovsky when Arlovsky was on his roll. He beat Werdum. He beat JDS. Avenged his loss. Which could say went either way. Could have gone either way. I mean, he beat Overeem. He beat Francis. He avenged his loss not once but twice to DC. I just feel that with Stipe, I mean, people, it's not me saying that, but I just feel with who he is, considering he's all nice and whatnot, I just think that, or I worry that Stipe might not get the credit he ultimately deserves because of who he is. He's not a very vocal guy. He's a hard worker. He's lunch pail, toughest nails guy. He's just who he is. And that's just how it goes. Where does he go from here? I mean, I would think rematch with Francis Ngannou is inevitable because Francis, he's been waiting and waiting for another title shot, and he has earned another title shot. What I think could happen, is you have Stipe versus Francis again. Then you have Derek Lewis, who just won, like I said. And then you have Trailblazers fight them to fight. But then where does that leave Rosenstrike, who just won? Um, I think maybe he needs another win. Probably not at the top of the heap, but some guy a little lower. Uh, but yeah, that's my opinion. Maybe he gets the winner. Maybe Rosenstrike gets the winner of Volkov versus Walt Harris. That's an idea. But yeah, solid night of fights. There was that. And news on a potential big couple news on two really good, highly anticipated fights at the end of the year. So, Max Holloway, the former featherweight champion, 145-pound champion, who just lost a rematch against Alexander Volkanovski, is going to fight top contender Calvin Kattar, who is coming off a slugfest against Stan Ige, as well as a knockout of Jeremy Stevens. I mean, it should be fun. Considering that, well, Korean Zombie is kind of on ice due to restrictions, and I would want to see him fight again if they go back to Fight Island. But yeah, we'll see. Of course, you got Brian Ortega as well in there. Zabit, he's going to fight Yair Rodriguez, UFC 254. But yeah, I mean, the 145-pound division is very interesting at the moment, you could say, because there's all these contenders at 145. Another highly anticipated fight, Colby Chaos Covington versus Tyron Woodley. Talk about a highly anticipated fight. This has been brewing for years. Colby Covington, widely outspoken. It's been almost a year since he and Kamaru Usman put on that war for the welterweight title. Tyron Woodley, his last two fights, losing the title to Kamaru Usman and then losing to Gilbert Burns in his last fight. He has looked not motivated. And you have to wonder, is Colby this fight going to be enough motivation for him to get back to who he was as the welterweight champion? Have that mindset again, because the last two fights you have not seen it out of Tyron Woodley. But right now, if I'm going off momentum, I have to pick Colby Covington because of how he's looked in his last fights. He's had a long layoff. He still looks in good shape. Woodley, of course, based on momentum, I have to pick Colby. So we go from that. After that, got some NFL news for you. So George Kittle and Travis Kelce, the two best tight ends in the NFL, both got paid, both deservedly so. both interesting ways about it because, well, George Kittle, there were rumors that he and the 49ers were far apart. Then there were rumors that they were getting close, so you didn't know. And then there were also rumors that Kittle wanted wide receiver like money uh, to break the bank. He didn't exactly get wide receiver money, but he got close to it, and he is the highest paid tight end ever in the NFL. 5 years, $75 million, $15 million per year. Well deserved. And Travis Kelce, well, it was different. Simply because, well, they paid Patrick Mahomes that gigantic contract. They paid Chris Jones. There were a couple years left on Travis Kelce's current deal, but they found some way to put pen to ink, and 4 years, a 4-year, $57.25 million extension. Well deserved. There are also a couple more extensions. Dion Dawkins, he had got the stud left tackle of the Buffalo Bills. He got a 4-year, $60 million deal, which I believe is $50 million per year. Yeah, 50. Well deserved for him. And obviously Josh Allen has to be happy because he'll be protected for years to come. Kenny Clark, another stud defense tackle of the Green Bay Packers, who is not the flashy defense tackle you'd expect, but he's still disruptive. He still gets sacks. He still gets tackles. 4 years, $70 million. Well deserved for him. And now, news that if you're a Vikings fan, you have just, if you came across this, if you're a Vikings fan, you probably turned away or just like, what the heck happened? The Cowboys, they signed Everson Griffin. Now, the Cowboys, I mean, they got Tyrone Crawford, they got DeMarcus Lawrence, they got Dontari Poe, they got Gerald McCoy, they got Aldon Smith, they got a lot of talent on that front seven, along with Wayne Vander Esch returning. You got Jalen Smith. You just add, you got Everson Griffin now. You are building a defense on probably the one flaw you had most of all last year, which is takeaways. I mean, in a year where you could arguably say it's boom or bust for Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, you are building that team in a division that is unknown right now. I mean, you got the Eagles. Is anybody going to stay healthy on the Eagles? You got the Giants, who I like, but you don't know how good they'll be this year. Speaking of the NFC East, Alex Smith, who, I mean, 2 years ago, of course, everyone knows that gruesome injury. I saw the documentary. I'm just amazed to see Alex Smith has been cleared to practice again for the Redskins. Or, excuse me, the Washington football team. The Washington football team. Excuse me. Alex Smith has been cleared to practice for the Washington football team. And he actually practiced today. Just seeing that makes anybody that saw his injury, saw that documentary, just happy and thrilled. I really hope this is nothing against Dwayne Haskins or Kyle Allen, but I really hope that he is the starter for this season. It would just be a great story. And, well, again, when you look at the AFC East, you don't know. There's not really a team that is running away from the start of training camp before the season with the division. It's just the way it is. It's not a very talent-packed division. But, yeah, I hope Alex Smith. It's crazy to think that 2 years ago, Adrian Peterson and Alex Smith were the starters for the full. Well, Adrian Peterson started the whole season, and Alex Smith, he didn't start the whole season, but he started most of it, obviously, because of the injury. But, I mean, to think that this year, Alex Smith and Adrian Peterson could both be starting again for the Washington football team be very cool, very interesting. Also, Bruce Miller, the former fullback of the San Francisco 49ers, who played from 2011 to 2016. He had some allegations against him, had some charges, which kept him out of the league for the last 4 years, but now he's back. He signed with the Jaguars. Should be very interesting because, well, Jake Gruden is now the offense coordinator of the Jaguars, and if they can install a fullback, and it would not only help Leonard Fournette, but it would help Gardner Minshew and that offense as a whole. So, should be interesting. Last off, I said I was going to go over my predictions for the NBA playoffs. So, now that all things are set, so now I'll do that. So, starting with the East, because the East is more easier to predict, in my opinion. So first off, in the first round, you would have the Bucks number 1 versus the Orlando Magic, who are basically the only team in the bubble that have home court advantage because it's in Orlando. But still, I'd have to go with the Bucks. Maybe in 5 games, maybe there's an upset, but still the Bucks win. So then you have the number 2 seeded Raptors against the Brooklyn Nets, number 7. Now, the Toronto Raptors, without Kawhi Leonard, have done a terrific job. They have, Pascal Siakam, Fred Van Fleet, Kyle Lowry, they've all done wonders this season. And Nets are just underloaded. They have a lack of starters in this series. I gotta go with Toronto. Next, the Boston Celtics versus Philadelphia 76ers, 3-6. So Ben Simmons is still out. Joel Embiid, he has returned to the team. His injury is not that serious. They still have Tobias Harris. They still have Al Horford. However, I would still go with the Boston Celtics. I think they just have more ammo. Lastly, probably the closest first round series of the East, in my opinion. You have the 4th seeded Pacers versus the Miami Heat. Now, the Miami Heat have been solid this season behind Jimmy Butler and Bam Doyle. The Pacers, Miles Turner, TJ Warren, it's just been crazy with them. This is hard, but I'm still going to go with the Miami Heat. I just think they got more in them to get past the series. So that would leave the Milwaukee Bucks facing the Miami Heat. I think the Heat would give the Bucks a good fight. However, I think Milwaukee would just do wonders and overpower the Miami Heat. And also that leaves Toronto and Boston. And I think Boston Celtics would just take over on Toronto. That would leave at the Eastern Conference Finals. You got the 1st seed Milwaukee Bucks and the 3 seed Boston Celtics. Now, this is difficult. If Giannis is firing on all cylinders, I gotta go with Milwaukee. Even though it's hard for me because I'm a Celtics fan, I gotta go with Milwaukee. So then, that's the East. Now the West. So, because the Trailblazers beat the Grizzlies, they're now the 8th seed, which means the Lakers and the Trailblazers will start the first round series in the West. Now, the Blazers, I mean, Damian Lillard cannot be overrated. He cannot be overlooked at. However, I just feel playoff experience, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma, Danny Green, I think they can all get it done. And outlast the Trailblazers. Next, you have a really interesting series between Los Angeles Clippers, 2 seed, and the 7th seed Dallas Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks are a young team riding behind Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. And they cannot be, like I said, overlooked at either. However, they're a young team. The Clippers are primed to win now. They got Kawhi Leonard, they got Paul George, they got Lou Williams back, they got Patrick Beverly. I mean, they got the crowd. I'll go with the Clippers. Next up, you have the 3 seed Denver Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr. has been doing really well. You got him. And Jokic against the Utah Jazz behind. Well, the Jazz lost Bogdanovich. They still have their players. I mean, I think if Bogdanovich was there, it'd be a different story, but I gotta go with the Denver Nuggets. Last of the first round series of the West, you got 4th seed Houston Rockets versus the 5th seed Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, obviously, the biggest story leading into this would be Russell Westbrook. I almost hit my printer, but whatever. You would have Russell Westbrook against his former team. However, due to injury, he's going to be out for most of the series. However, you got the best player in James Harden on the roster. Therefore, also you have Chris Paul against his former team. Last played for Houston. So, I mean, I would go with the Houston Rockets in this case. So that would leave the Lakers facing the Rockets, and then you have the Clippers and the Nuggets. It's kind of sad because I think this would be. Well, hold on for a sec. Sorry about that. Need to blow my nose. So you would have that. So the Lakers and the Rockets. Now, Russell Westbrook should be healthy by then. Lakers, I mean, what worries me is, James Harden and Russell Westbrook. They're both really talented, 2 of the best players in the league. However, when it comes to playoff time, seem to be just overwhelmed. They just don't do their best playoff basketball in the playoffs, or basketball in the playoffs. And I just think with the Lakers and LeBron, excuse me, you would just have better output by the Lakers. So I gotta go with the Lakers in that. This to me, I think would be. This to me is the Eastern Conference Finals. The Clippers and the Nuggets. But it would be a second round series. This is tough. I have not picked a winner yet. I mean, you got Jokic, you got Jamal Murray, you got Michael Porter Jr. has done really well. I want to go with the Nuggets, but the Clippers are just loaded. It's just difficult. Screw it. I'm picking the Nuggets. I'm picking the Denver Nuggets over Los Angeles Clippers. So that would mean the Lakers and the Nuggets would be the Eastern Conference Final, the Western Conference Finals. Not the Greek Freak, but Jokic, the Joker, versus LeBron should be very interesting. I just picked the Nuggets to beat the Clippers, but can I pick them against the Lakers? Nah, I can't. So I would have the Lakers beat the Nuggets, and your finals, NBA Finals, would be Milwaukee and the Lakers. So there's that. There's my NBA predictions. So that's the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tried to get as much news as I could for today before I go back to school. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. There will be no AEW review on Thursday because of the little change, because the NBA playoffs are on Wednesday. And of course AEW will be on Saturday instead for this week. So, but I'll still have my NXT review on Friday. I'll probably have, because NXT TakeOver 30 is on Saturday as well. So I'll probably have a video uploaded on Thursday, or excuse me, not Thursday, next Tuesday. Or I'll just have to see. But thank you all for joining me for today. Hope this was a good video for you. Like and subscribe. And I'll see you all on Friday.